No TV show had ever been this controversial. All in the Family turned sitcoms into social warfare. Then came the episode where Edith Bunker faced the unimaginable. CBS was terrified. The network had to organize private screenings for police and doctors before it aired. Local stations threatened to boycott. Production stopped completely for nearly a month, while executives debated whether to kill the show entirely. When it finally aired, it drew 40 million viewers and changed television forever. Here's the whole story behind that scene. It all started with a British show and a strained relationship between a father and son. Norman Lear said he got the idea for All in the Family after reading about a British sitcom called Till Death Us Do Part. It reminded him of his own father, who used to yell at his mother to stifle herself, while she'd shoot back, calling him the laziest white man I ever saw. These lines would later become iconic in American TV history. But in 2025, something unexpected happened. Sally Struthers, who played Gloria on the show, claimed that Carol O'Connor was the one who discovered the British series while visiting the UK. She said he brought the idea to Lear himself, only to be left out of the credit later. She kept the story to herself for decades, waiting until Lear passed away before revealing it. That changed everything people thought they knew about how the show began. The road to television wasn't smooth. The first version of the show, called Justice for All, was made for ABC in late 1968. Carol O'Connor played Archie Justice. Gene Stapleton played his wife, Edith. But ABC got cold feet. Around the same time, they had just canceled a wild and offensive sketch show called Turn On after only one episode. It scared them off anything too risky, and Lear's pilot didn't stand a chance. Still, the idea wasn't dead yet. ABC asked for another try. Lear quickly delivered a second version, now called Those Were the Days, and filmed it on February 16, 1969. O'Connor and Stapleton returned, but Gloria and her husband were now played by different actors. Even then, ABC still walked away. Lear shopped it around, and for a moment, it looked like it might become a film instead of a TV series. But then CBS stepped in. At the time, CBS was a ratings giant, but they had a problem. Most of their hits, like Green Acres and The Beverly Hillbillies, were watched by older rural audiences. Advertisers didn't want that. They wanted younger, city viewers with money to spend. In 1971, CBS started cutting their rural shows. A cast member from Green Acres joked they canceled anything with a tree in it. That's when All in the Family got its shot. CBS had once tried to buy the American rights to Till Death Us Do Part to make a version for Jackie Gleason, but Lear had beaten them to it. Gleason, Tom Bosley, and Jack Warden were all considered to play the lead. Mickey Rooney even got offered the role first, but Mickey Rooney turned it down. He thought the show would get Norman Lear killed. He told him, "They're going to shoot you in the street." Rooney said the character was un-American and that the show would blow up in Lear's face. It didn't. Instead, Carol O'Connor landed the role that would define him forever. O'Connor wasn't Lear's first choice, but once he got the part, he owned it. The official story was that Lear saw O'Connor in a war comedy and loved his expressive face. But again, Struthers dropped a bombshell in 2025. She said it was O'Connor who had first seen the British version, and he had brought it to Lear, hoping to be its star. According to her, he never got credit for being part of the show's creation. That claim added yet another twist to the already complicated story behind one of TV's most iconic characters. Gene Stapleton, who played Edith, brought heart to a show filled with sharp edges. Lear found her on stage in Damn Yankees. Most actresses failed to get the role right, but Stapleton saw Edith as more than just Archie's doormat. She understood that Edith had small moments of power, lines that cut through Archie's bluster. Stapleton, born in 1923 in New York, had spent years acting on stage before television came calling. She won 3 Emmys and 2 Golden Globes for the role. Even from the start, in the first 1968 pilot, she was there beside O'Connor, playing a character that would grow into one of the most loved TV moms of all time. Rob Reiner, who played Michael Meathead Stivic, didn't have an easy path either. He first auditioned during the ABC pilot phase, but got rejected. Then he landed a writing job on a short-lived Andy Griffith show called Headmaster. He played a teacher who was having an affair with a student. It was a risky role, but it got Lear's attention. Reiner said Lear saw he had matured and gave him another chance. When CBS took over the project, Reiner and Struthers became the third set of actors cast as Mike and Gloria. Reiner won 2 Emmys for the role, but he always had bigger plans. He went on to become a director and created films like This Is Spinal Tap, The Princess Bride, and When Harry Met Sally. Sally Struthers, who played Gloria, had her own set of struggles. She was born in Portland in 1947 and had just been fired from the Tim Conway Comedy Hour before she auditioned. On a 2025 podcast, she said she never really liked Lear and that she once asked why she was picked over Penny Marshall, who, on paper, looked more like Edith. Lear told her it was because she and O'Connor both had blue eyes and fat faces. He thought that would make the father-daughter bond more believable. Struthers won 2 Emmys for her performance, but by season 5, she wanted out. She spent $40,000 trying to break her contract, but lost. She stayed for 3 more seasons. Before her, the role had been played by 2 other actresses. She was the third and final Gloria. When All in the Family first aired on January 12, 1971, no one expected it to shake up television forever. Back then, sitcoms were clean, safe, and polite. Families smiled, jokes were gentle, and real-life problems stayed off-screen. But Norman Lear believed America was ready for more. He was inspired by a British show called Till Death Us Do Part. He wanted to bring the same raw energy to American TV. CBS was nervous. ABC had already said no, but CBS's new president, Robert D. Wood, took a bold chance. And everything changed. The first episode aired at 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Only 15% of viewers tuned in. CBS even hired extra phone operators in case angry viewers called to complain. But what happened next was beyond anything they imagined. Within a year, 50 million Americans were watching every week. It wasn't just a comedy. It was a mirror, a rough, honest mirror that reflected the tensions between generations. Archie Bunker, loud, stubborn, and set in his ways, argued with his liberal son-in-law Mike on almost every issue, but neither was always right. That was the genius. The show didn't give easy answers. It showed messy, real people clashing over real issues. And it didn't shy away from hard topics. All in the Family tackled everything: racism, anti-Semitism, abortion, rape, menopause, divorce, and the Vietnam War. One episode told the story of Edith's cousin, who had secretly been in a lesbian relationship for years. Another showed white supremacists vandalizing the Bunkers' home, thinking they were Jewish. In one unforgettable scene, Archie revealed his own father used to lock him in a closet. It explained his prejudice. It didn't excuse it, but it made him human. That was the show's power. It didn't preach. It made people think. At first, CBS didn't know what to do with it. They were so afraid of backlash that they added a warning before each episode. It told viewers the show was meant to expose prejudice by making fun of it. But the tension behind the scenes was just as strong as what played out on screen. Norman Lear fought the CBS censors constantly. He wasn't allowed to say, "God damn it," in the pilot. At one point, CBS tried to move the show to a later time. Lear sued them. That's how serious it got. Despite all this, the show became a giant. From 1971 to 1976, it was the #1 show in America. No other show had ever pulled that off before. It won 4 Emmys in a row for Best Comedy Series. In total, it won 22 Emmys and was nominated 74 times. Carroll O'Connor, who played Archie, took home multiple awards. One of his biggest came in 1979 for the episode California, Here We Are. That same year, the series finale drew 40.2 million viewers, and even when it ended, the story kept going. All in the Family ran for 9 seasons and 205 episodes. Then it turned into Archie Bunker's Place, which ran 4 more years. The Bunkers took in a foster child. Mike and Gloria moved away. Archie bought a bar. The show kept evolving. It also launched 5 spin-offs, including The Jeffersons. which actually outlasted the original, running 11 seasons. By the time it ended, All in the Family had built a television universe unlike anything before it. But maybe the most explosive moment came on Christmas Day in 1976. The episode was called The Draft Dodger. It featured David Brewster, a young man who had fled to Canada to avoid fighting in Vietnam. David wasn't treated like a villain. He was calm, thoughtful, and honest. Mike invited him to Christmas dinner without telling Archie. And Archie had also invited his friend Pinky Peterson, whose son had died in the war. The clash was brutal. David tried to explain his choice. Archie was furious. Mike defended him, saying what David did took a lot of guts. It was one of the most intense episodes in the show's history. But there was a problem. During a key moment, Archie said, "I don't want to talk about that goddamned war no more." CBS panicked. They forced the line to be changed. It became "that rotten damn war," and the overdub was obvious. Lear was furious. The change killed the emotional power of the scene. But even with the edit, the episode hit hard. It pulled in 34.5 million viewers, the highest of that season. The timing of the episode couldn't have been more perfect. Just weeks earlier, Jimmy Carter had won the presidential election. One of his campaign promises was to pardon all draft dodgers. And just 27 days after The Draft Dodger aired, he did it. On January 21st, 1977, his first full day in office, Carter issued Proclamation 4483, granting a full pardon. Suddenly, people like the fictional David Brewster could come home. About 50,000 real-life Americans had been living in exile. That one TV episode had captured the exact moment the country turned a page. On February 19, 1972, American TV changed forever. It happened during Season 2, Episode 21 of All in the Family, in an episode called Sammy's Visit. At first glance, the setup was simple. Sammy Davis Jr., playing himself, left his briefcase in Archie Bunker's cab. He showed up at Archie's home to get it back. But what happened next shocked the country and made television history. Archie Bunker was already known as the most openly bigoted character on TV. He used terms like the coloreds and saw the world through a narrow racist lens. So when one of America's most beloved black entertainers walked into Archie's home, viewers knew something explosive was coming, but they didn't expect what happened at the end. The idea for the episode actually came from Sammy Davis Jr. himself. He mentioned on The Tonight Show in 1972 that he wanted to appear on All in the Family. Writer Bill Dana came up with a storyline that would bring Sammy face-to-face with Archie. Series creator Norman Lear worried that it might feel like a gimmick, but the idea was too good to pass up. When filming began, Sammy was nervous. He even asked for cue cards. But director John Rich said no. Everyone had to perform under the same conditions. As the cameras rolled, Sammy delivered every line with calm confidence. He didn't flinch when Archie threw his usual racist remarks. He met them with sharp comebacks and dry wit. The audience loved it. Sammy later explained, "He fawned all over me in the show, but his prejudice still comes through." And it did. Archie tried to be polite, but his true feelings kept bubbling up. That tension built to a boiling point. Then came the final moment, the kiss. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't expected, but it was powerful. Just before leaving, Sammy turned and planted a kiss on Archie's cheek. The audience erupted. For 38 full seconds, they laughed and clapped and cheered. It was one of the longest reactions in TV history. Director John Rich said they had to cut the laugh down because it lasted too long. He described it like this: "Bang, he's kissing." And we went in, and Archie took that look of surprise. And then the audience just went berserk. But this moment wasn't just funny. It was a bold statement. A black man kissing a white man on American TV in 1972 was unheard of. Add in the fact that it was Archie Bunker, the face of bigotry, and it became a social grenade. Just 5 years earlier, the United States Supreme Court had finally struck down laws banning interracial marriage. That was in 1967, with the Loving versus Virginia decision. Before that, 16 states still had laws that made it illegal for black and white people to marry. So by the time Sammy kissed Archie, Those old wounds were still raw. There had been interracial kisses on TV before. In 1968, Star Trek showed Captain Kirk kissing Lieutenant Uhura. That moment got hate mail, especially from Southern viewers. So imagine the outrage when two men, one black and one white, shared physical contact on national television. It was supposed to be just another birthday. On October 16, 1977, over 40 million Americans tuned in to watch All in the Family. What they saw that night wasn't just a sitcom, it was a cultural earthquake. Gene Stapleton's character, Edith Bunker, turned 50. The episode began with laughter. Her family was planning a surprise party. Edith was home alone, waiting. A man knocked on her door. He said he was a police detective. He lied. He wasn't there to protect anyone. He was the danger. His name was Detective Lambert, but he was a predator. Slowly, tension built. Edith tried to stay calm. She rambled, answered the phone, tried anything to delay him. Then Archie walked in for just a moment to grab a punch bowl. The man hid in the closet. He whispered to Edith, if she said one word, he'd kill them both. The oven timer rang. Edith told him the birthday cake was burning. He let her go. She didn't just grab the cake, she grabbed her one chance. She hit him in the face with the burning hot pan and ran. Minutes later, at her surprise party, she collapsed in Archie's arms. The audience was stunned. Laughter had turned into tears. A sitcom had turned into a lifeline. This wasn't a random choice. Norman Lear, the show's creator, had a mission. He wanted to show that sexual assault wasn't just a crime that happened in alleyways or only to young women. It could happen to anyone, even someone like Edith, especially someone like Edith. Lear reached out to Gail Abarbanel, head of the Rape Treatment Center in Santa Monica. He asked her one question: if you could talk to 40 million people about rape, what would you want to say? She didn't just answer. She joined the writer's room. She sat with them, rewrote scenes, shaped the story. She made sure it was real, not sensational. Lear even took the idea from another show and gave it to Edith because he knew the impact would be greater. The story wasn't over after the cake. Part 2 of the episode aired the following week. It showed Edith struggling, crying, hiding. She didn't want to report it. She blamed herself. She doubted. But in the end, she made a decision. She identified the man. She did it not for revenge, but to stop him from hurting someone else. Behind the scenes, CBS executives were nervous. Advertisers threatened to pull out. Local stations in conservative areas didn't want to air it. It was the 9 p.m. family hour. This was supposed to be a comedy block. But Lear didn't back down. He pushed forward. CBS organized private screenings for police, doctors, and therapists. Long before the episode aired, they wanted professionals to learn how victims think, how they respond, how to help. Newspapers refused to print what the episode was really about. They just wrote that Edith faced a crisis. But the audience knew, and they kept watching. That year, All in the Family wasn't just the #1 show. It became a mirror for a country avoiding a hard truth. At the center of this storm was Carroll O'Connor. He played Archie Bunker, the loud, stubborn, old-school man with outdated views. But O'Connor himself was the opposite. He believed in unions. He believed in people. And he wasn't afraid to stop everything to prove it. In 1974, CBS faced a strike. Maintenance workers were picketing. O'Connor didn't hesitate. He refused to cross the line. Filming stopped. "I've been a trade union man all my life," he told reporters. "I won't break a strike." This wasn't a small protest. He was the star of the most-watched show in America, and he walked away. O'Connor and Norman Lear had a tense relationship. They fought often, over scripts, over money, over politics. O'Connor didn't hold back. He accused Lear of trying to ruin his reputation. Lear thought O'Connor was too demanding. Still, they kept working, because something bigger was at stake. In one interview, O'Connor even said the show could go on without him. "There's a lot happening in the bunker house before Archie gets home," he said. He wasn't just bluffing. Producers had actually discussed writing him out, but he wasn't afraid. He was ready to walk if the cause was right. That wasn't the first time. Back in 1972, when CBS tried to replace skilled technicians with machines, workers went on strike for 8 weeks. O'Connor stood with them. He refused to work with strikebreakers. Episodes were delayed. Viewers waited. O'Connor didn't budge. He may have played Archie Bunker, But Carroll O'Connor was nothing like him. He taught college. He read philosophy. He fought for workers. He fought for justice. And he knew exactly who Archie was. An unhappy man poisoned by hate, he once said. That's why he played him so well, because he understood the cost of ignorance. By the time Edith's 50th birthday aired, O'Connor and Lear had fought, reconciled, and reshaped television together. They had taken a comedy and turned it into a social force. They tackled racism, sexism, violence, and now sexual assault. And they didn't do it gently. They did it head-on. One morning in January 2025, Sally Struthers dropped a bomb no one expected. On a podcast called Let's Talk About That, she said something that shook the legacy of one of America's most iconic shows. According to her, Norman Lear didn't actually create All in the Family. It was Carroll O'Connor, yes, Archie Bunker himself, who first wanted to adapt the British sitcom Till Death Us Do Part for American television. Struthers claimed Lear pretended for 52 years to be the creator and only told the truth after his death in December 2023. At age 101, it was a bold claim that flipped the story everyone thought they knew. O'Connor's role wasn't just acting. According to old interviews, he rewrote the entire pilot by hand and even recorded all the parts himself. Archie, Edith, Mike, and even the neighbor kid. He sent in an audio tape where he played every voice. Then Lear took that and turned it into the actual script. Even years later, Lear admitted something surprising on The Mike Douglas Show. He pointed to O'Connor and said, "The best writer this show ever had was this fellow right here." That comment stunned O'Connor, who once said Lear was never great at sharing credit. There's more. O'Connor had seen the British version while in London. And even though someone else, producer Howard Adelman, bought the rights first, O'Connor was deeply involved in trying to bring it to American TV. He didn't just influence the character of Archie Bunker, he was the voice and the attitude. He had the real New York accent, the working-class background, the presence. Lear even admitted it was O'Connor's personality that shaped the tone. But back then, O'Connor didn't think the show would work. He asked for a return plane ticket to Rome in his contract, just in case it flopped. That was his backup plan. Instead, the show became the #1 program in the United States for 5 straight years. Struthers kept quiet about all this for decades, but after Lear passed away, she felt free to speak. In that podcast interview, she didn't just accuse Lear of stealing credit. She said he excluded her from parties, treated her coldly, and once told her, "We hired you because, just like Carroll O'Connor, you have blue eyes and a fat face." It hurt her so deeply that she hired lawyers to break her contract. She spent around $40,000, an enormous sum in the 1970s, trying to get out of the show. She lost the case and had to keep playing Gloria. Later, she returned for Archie Bunker's place and starred in her own spin-off, Gloria. But the wounds never healed. Struthers said those remarks stuck with her for life. Behind the scenes, the tension between Lear and O'Connor wasn't just creative, it was legal. In 1974, O'Connor walked off the set and sued. He said Lear broke promises. His contract included a writing credit and script control, but he didn't get either. He was earning $25,000 per episode back then, about $137,000 today. But money didn't fix the problem. In Lear's 2014 memoir, he described O'Connor's frustration. During one episode, The Elevator Story, O'Connor refused to act. The scene had Archie trapped in an elevator with a Hispanic woman about to give birth. O'Connor cried on set. He said he hated the episode, hated the show, and hated Lear. Lear felt if he gave in, the show's message would die, so he pushed back. O'Connor eventually returned, and the episode went on to win an Emmy. Despite their battles, Lear admitted he couldn't imagine anyone else playing Archie. He once said that the first time he saw O'Connor audition, "My entire body felt, oh my God, this is Archie." And even after all the chaos, he called it so worth it. The show tackled everything: racism, sexism, homosexuality, abortion, rape, menopause, topics American TV had never dared to touch. It made audiences uncomfortable. It made history. But it also wore down the people who created it. O'Connor was a liberal man playing a racist bigot. He used to teach English. He believed in equality, and yet he had to deliver lines that went against everything he stood for. He often fought the writers on the script. The emotional weight of that role wasn't easy to carry. And it wasn't just the creators fighting. The cast had its own cracks. Struthers spoke about Betty White in the podcast too, calling her passive-aggressive. During a game show taping, White told her not to eat a cookie because she didn't need it. That one moment, that little jab, stayed with Struthers for years.